Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today I will be using a fan favorite Pokémon from Generation 1. Arcanine is beloved by many people, not so much by me, but that's because I don't really like fire types all that much. That is probably because Emerald is my favorite game, and in here fire types are not that great. So it will be interesting to see if Arcanine can set this game ablaze or if his flame will be snuffed out. As far as the rules go, I will still be using the same ones, so I can only use my starter in combat. I can't use items from my bag in battle, I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. Arcanine is a stone evolution Pokemon, and because of that it has a pretty big weakness. As you can see on the right, it does not learn many moves through level up. Fortunately for us, his starting moveset is pretty good, offering two decent fighting moves. Boot, Bite and Ember are special, which is fine. Special attack is not our greatest stat, but it will be quite useful at the start of the game. The first few fights proved to be very easy. By using either Bite or Ember, I can at worst two-shot every Pokémon I encounter. Things got a bit more difficult as I approached the first gym leader, because Roxanne uses rock types that are super effective on us and resist Ember. Fortunately, they do not resist Bite, so even though it is not near a one-shot, it is still able to two-shot her first two Geodudes. Because of that and a flinch, I can get through them by getting hit only once. That single rock tomb, though, did a lot of damage, leaving me quite worried for Nosepass. Fortunately, the high flinch rate from Bite and the not so great AI from Roxanne allowed me to get through this fight without having to reset even a single time. Now that we have obtained the first badge of the game, we can use Cut out of combat, but that's not very important. Instead, we can take on this Team Aqua Grunt to rescue the Pico that he is holding hostage. Because of that, the old guy allows us to use his boat to progress through the story, but before I can do that, I have the optional fight against May. This one is a bit scary, mostly because her starter now has a stab move that will do decent damage to me, and Torkoal could be problematic if he used any physical moves, but I can defeat it before he can attack me. Mudkip was unlucky enough to get flinched twice, so I can surprisingly get out of this fight without losing a single HP. Since both of my moves are resisted by the Makuhita, who is Brawly's ace, I decided to skip him for now and instead proceed to Slateport. Here I have to defeat a couple more Team Aqua Grunts as I am delivering the boat parts to the scientist captain guy. Their Pokémons are not too threatening, but since the only moves I have for them are Bite, the fight against them takes a little longer than what I would have liked. After having to listen to Archie for a little while, I can resume the training, and not long after that there is another fight against me. This one is probably the most dangerous one, since she now has evolved her starter into a Marshtomp, and that guy knows Mud Shot. While it's not a crazy good move, it is still super effective on me and does a lot of damage. Thanks to a crit, I can get rid of her starter and defeat her. After training a bit more around Moville, I decided to go back for Brawly. No particular reason really, I cannot learn Bulk Up, so fighting him right now it's not super useful. I just did not want to stop by him as I made my way to Norman later. Makuhita still proves to be kinda tanky, and so I do not regret my earlier decision. Now that we have obtained the second badge too, we can make our way back into Moville, where I can take on the third gym leader. Wattson is not particularly dangerous today, because thanks to all the money I collected, I can buy Flamethrower, and with a good stab move that is also super effective on his most dangerous Pokémon, the fight against this boss is very easy. I almost end up one-shotting all of his Pokémons. The only thing that survives a little longer is Manectric. Now that we have this badge too, we are allowed to use Rock Smash out of combat. That leads us to explore a lot more of the region until we stumble upon the two teams having a bit of a scuffle in Meteorfall Caves. Here we are also informed about Max's plan, and of course we cannot let him trigger this volcano. To stop him, we challenge him to a duel. The fight against him is not too scary, but also not super easy either. The Mightyena is not a really problem, I can ignore Intimidate. What sort of worries me is Camerupt. For now I can defeat him with 2 Flamethrowers, but later on, when he will know Earthquake, that guy might pose a bit of a problem. After thwarting Max's plan, we can resume our journey, and we have to face the next gym. Once again, Flannery is not particularly easy or that challenging either. Her Pokémons resist fire, which is annoying since I can't really use my best move. Instead, I have to rely on Bite, that does not have the highest firepower, and so it's nowhere near enough to take down her later Pokémon in a quick fashion. That allows her Camerupt to use Attract on me, and that move is so annoying, especially when you combine it with the Hyper Potion usage on her part. Torkoal is last, but today Bite really decided to ruin her day, flinching her twice and allowing me to defeat her boss Pokémon without taking any damage. Now that we have the first 4 badges, we have to backtrack all the way to one of the first towns, where we can take on our dead Norman. His team is not that worrisome either. Most of his Pokémons are going to be defeated by a single Flamethrower. The only thing that will leave for sure is Slacking, but he is not super dangerous either, since Flamethrower is special, and it also decides to burn him, so his physical attacks are going to be much less dangerous. After an easy win against our dead, we are given the Surf HM, and with that move we can explore pretty much the rest of the region. This leads us into the Weather Institute, where we find a whole bunch of Team Aqua grunts. After taking them out, we can do the same with their leader. Shelly does not pose any kind of a threat against us, and her team is defeated in a couple of Flamethrowers. Soon after that, we have to fight May once again, and she is quite a bit more dangerous. Her team is much more adept at taking fire moves, but even if that's the case, I am still going to spam Flamethrower over and over again. It may not be the best choice, but it ended up working very fine for me in the end. Next up, after clearing a couple of Kecleons with Steven, we can take on the next gym leader. Winona uses fire types, which are fine. There are a couple of annoying things here that we have to fight against. First off, the Pelipper, but that's more because of the resistance to fire than anything else. What sort of worries me is Altaria, since it knows Dragon Dance to increase his stats, and Earthquake that can do massive damage. Not sure if that was because of the nature, but even a +2 Earthquake does not do that much to me. With the biggest worry out of the way, the rest of the team can easily fall to some fire, and with that we have acquired this badge too. In the next town, we have to face our rival once again in front of them all. I'm not sure if I will be using a substitute for the League and Elite Four yet, but that's always good to have that option open, since that move is extremely strong. On the other hand, there is not a whole lot to say about May's theme, it's more or less more of the same. Again, Flamethrower may not be the best choice, but it's the move that I decided to use. It does lead to me taking a bit of unnecessary damage, but it's not the end of the world. Our next step is going to climb the Mount Pyre. Here we find the Team Aqua leader and also this old lady that gives us the magma emblem. With this key item, we can enter the cave where Groudon resides, and after battling our way through the grunts, we find Maxie waking up the legendary Pokémon. Since he used the wrong orb, Groudon flees, and we end up having to fight against the Team Magma boss. My earlier predictions sort of turned out to be true, as Camerupt does have Earthquake and he hurt a lot, but between a couple of misplays and my decent damage, that does not end up mattering too much. Once that guy is defeated, we can burn our way through the rest of his team. Once we are done defeating the Team Magma's boss, we have to do sort of the same against the Team Aqua. Unfortunately, this time, as we reach the depths of their base, we only find one of their admirals, who is buying time for their boss. Even though this guy's team is very easy to deal with, that is still enough for Archie to run away in the stolen submarine. Because of that, we have to take on Tate and Liza to be able to use the Dive HM. I was a bit worried about this fight. Of course, it's a 2v1, which never makes it easy, but since my only attacking moves are Flamethrower and Bite, this might end up taking a bit too long. Bite is super effective, sure, but it's only 60 power and they have Calm Mind to increase their special defense. My other option is a Flamethrower, but of course their rock Pokémons are going to be able to resist that. I got very lucky in this fight. The damage ranges worked in my favor, and Xatu spent a bit too much time setting up before attacking me, which allowed me to take it out before I could get hit by a massive Psychic. With only Solrock left, it was only a matter of time before the badge was mine. And after claiming it and healing up from those bruises, we have to take on the other double fight of this place. This time, it's not going to be a 2v1, since we are helped by Steven in the fight against the Team Magma leadership, once again. Their Pokémons are more of the same, so I do not really have to worry about much. Sure, the two Camerupts could be dangerous, but since they do not use any of the super effective moves on me, they are not that threatening. The other annoying part could be Crobat or Mightyena confusing me, which could be problematic if I end up hitting myself multiple times in confusion. But since they don't even try that strategy, the fight ended up being kinda safe for me. You may find my voice even more weird than usual, that's because I'm battling through a cold. It has been a couple of weeks like this, and I burned through my backlog, so I have to power through it and record this one. Anyway, after defeating those guys for the last time, hopefully, we are finally given the Dive HM, and we have to use it to reach the seafloor cave. Here we find the legendary Pokémon Kyogre, but also Archie, who is about to wake it up. To try to prevent that, we challenge him to a fight, and of course we pretty much sweep his team. Sharpedo is a water type, but since he does not know any water moves, he cannot really stop us either. Of course, even though we won the match, that is still not enough to stop the story. The red orb activates on its own and wakes up the legendary Pokémon. With both of the weather gods active, Hoenn has become a mess, and so we have to go ask Rayquaza for help. As I do that, you can take a second to scroll down a little and press the thumbs up button, subscribe, bell, and since you're already there, why not leave a comment? Anyway, after the shameless plug, we have to finally defeat the last of the gym leaders. Unfortunately, since Juan specializes in water types, the fight against him ended up being kinda dangerous. I got defeated once by Kingdra, because of course it has to be that Pokémon always causing problems, but at least the second attempt went a bit better. This last stretch of the game will be kinda hard for Arcanine, since there will be a lot of water or ground Pokémons that will prove to be a challenge for us. At least Juan is not that strong, his Pokémons are still somewhat low leveled and do not have that much water power to defeat me. Kingdra once again tries the double team strategy, and while it sort of works out at first for him, I am thankfully able to land 2 returns in a row, which allow me to defeat the Seahorse Pokémon and get the last badge. Now that we can also use Waterfall out of combat, we can finally enter the Victory Road, where we are soon challenged by our secondary rival of the game. Wally's team is quite good, but other than Altaria, the rest of his Pokémons are not that problematic. Much like Winona's Altaria, this one also knows Dragon Dance and Earthquake, that's why I am a bit worried, but a crit return fixes that problem real quick. The rest of his Pokémons can all be defeated with either Flamethrower or Return, posing much less of a challenge. Unfortunately, Arcanine cannot learn any boosting moves. It would have been very useful to be able to learn either Bulk Up or Calm Mind, so that I could focus on special attacks or physical ones. While damage has not really been a problem so far, I predict it will be the major breaking point in the Elite Four. Speaking of, we can start the gauntlet with Sidney. His Pokémons are not too dangerous, because even though my attack gets lowered by Intimidate from his lead Mightyena, I can still dish out a lot of damage with the Flamethrower, given the fact that most of his team is either neutral or even weak to fire. The only thing that I will have to worry about is a Crodant, but since I am sitting behind a substitute, that can take the initial hit, and from there a spam of flamethrowers is enough to cook the lobster. The rest of the team is unable to stop me, and so a few turns later I can come out on top, having defeated the first Elite Four. Our next challenger is going to be Phoebe, who specializes in ghost types. Once again, the major threat is her lead Dusclops, because it knows Curse. One of the reasons why Substitute is so powerful in this game is that it can nullify that move, making this fight much easier. Flamethrower is not quite strong enough to one-shot all of her Pokémons, but even if that's the case, is still more than enough to burn through most of her team. I do end up getting hit a couple of times here and there, but it's not even enough to destroy the Substitute, so this was a very easy fight too. After finishing off the rest of her team, we can move on to Glacia, our next fight. This one is going to be quite a bit more challenging. Sure, her team is Ice type, which should be quite easy for us, since we are super effective. But since 2/3 of her team are Celio and Walrein, who are both water type and also have the thick fat ability, that effectively means that we are weak against them, especially since Walrein has Surf. Things could be a bit problematic, because Return is not quite enough to two-shot it, but a very lucky flinch from Bite saves me a lot of trouble and probably a couple of resets. Once Walrein falls, the rest of the team is going to be much easier to deal with. The two Glalis are going to be one-shotted by Flamethrower for sure, and the single Celio is not quite powerful enough to stop us. After getting through what could have been a very hard fight unscathed, I had high hopes for this Arcanine. Unfortunately, Drake shut down my dreams very fast. The main problem with Drake is that a lot of his Pokémons have super effective moves on me. Actually, now that I think about it, literally all of them have at least one. And of course, getting hit by an Earthquake from Flygon or a Rock Slide from Salamence will hurt a lot. On the other hand, my damage output is not very high. Flamethrower is resisted, Bite is not very powerful, but a lucky Return crit allowed me to preserve the Substitute all the way up until Salamence. That was enough to block his Intimidate and keep my attack decently high so that Return could do something to his Pokémons. We are not speaking about absurd amount of damage, but it was just enough to two-shot the remaining Pokémons on his team. That still means that I have to take attacks from them, but luckily for me, Kingdra messed up and tried to go for a Dragon Dance, and so did Altaria, so I ended up dodging two very powerful moves. And all of that was just what I needed to get through this fight. Along the way, I also had to use a couple of rare candies, but not all of them. Instead, I used the last few I had before the fight against the champion. Still, even at the max level I could reach right now, Wallace was a bit of a problem. All of his Pokémons do a lot of damage with stab water moves, and my damage output is still very low. Much like Drake, he also has an Intimidate Pokémon deep in his team, and so I yet again have to try to find a way to keep a Substitute alive all the way until Gyarados, so that I can block his Intimidate and maybe have enough damage for the rest of the team. Walrein and Ludicolo were not really that big of a problem, it was sort of a scripted fight, but then I got quite lucky against Tentacruel since he missed his attack, and then I could finish him off. And also I got very lucky against Whiscash, since it went for an Amnesia instead of Earthquake or Surf. And once again, that combination of moves allowed me to keep the substitute for Gyarados. The luck does not stop there, as I got a flinch and then a crit against Gyarados. That put me in a fantastic position against Milotic, as with my substitute still up, there was very little it could do before I was able to finish the snake off. As expected, the early and mid parts of the game were very easy, but the last few fights were very rough for Arcanine. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, and all of that YouTube stuff. And also, if you have any feedback, video ideas, or any suggestions, leave them down in the comments. I'll be sure to answer all of them. See you next week. Bye!